Running backs don't matter.
Running backs don't matter has become something of a catchphrase or a rallying cry for advanced analytics in football. I'm sure anyone who's listened to me talk about football has heard me say it a million times. I know that the fantasy football group chat that I'm in is sick of me saying it.
But when I decided to give in to my basic sports journalism kid urges and make this YouTube channel, I decided that this was the obvious pilot episode topic. I promise I'll shut up about running backs after this is over, but it's not over yet. So without further ado,
Running backs don't matter. When I say that, it doesn't mean that running the football is useless and that teams should never ever do it. It means that the person actually doing the running is replaceable. Basically, good running backs are extremely easy to find, so teams shouldn't spend a lot of money or draft capital on one. Every summer, the NFL releases a list of the top 100 players of the last year, as voted by their fellow players. On the 2018 list, Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell was voted the best running back in the league, and the fifth best player overall. Rams running back Todd Gurley was one spot behind him at number 6, two elite MVP caliber running backs. So, how have their careers shaped up since then? The Steelers wouldn't give Le'Veon the contract he wanted, so he sat out the entire season. Instead of rolling with an alleged top 5 player in the whole league at running back, the Steelers unexpectedly had to start James Conner, a second-year player and former third-round pick out of Pitt. Did the Steelers' offense collapse? No. In fact, as a team, they went from 25th in yards per attempt to 24th. A slight improvement despite the fact that they went from a highly regarded running back like Le'Veon Bell to a relatively unknown player in James Conner. After sitting out all of 2018, Le'Veon Bell returned in 2019 on a new team, the New York Jets. If running backs mattered, you'd expect that going from Isaiah Crowell to Le'Veon Bell would mean big improvements for the Jets' running game, but that's not what happened. In fact, the Jets were the second worst team in the league in rushing this past year. They actually got worse after adding a great running back. Let's take a look at how Todd Gurley's career arc is going. In 2018, Todd Gurley was a legitimate candidate for the league's Most Valuable Player award. He was rushing for 89.4 yards per game and was leading the league in touchdowns. However, in Week 16 he hurt his leg and missed time. Enter his backup, C.J. Anderson. He had been released by 2 teams in the last calendar year. The Broncos let him walk in free agency, and then the Panthers straight up cut the guy. He was north of 30 years old, and his BMI literally put him in the obese range. You would think going from the Offensive Player of the Year to a self-described old and fat running back, who the Panthers just cut, would do quite a number on the Rams' offense, or at least on their rushing game. But that's not what happened. After taking over for Gurley, Anderson averaged 97.6 yards per game. He not only met Gurley's production, he surpassed it, on less carries. In the 4 games where Anderson had more carries than Gurley, the Rams were 4-0, undefeated. Gurley was a first-round pick who recently signed a $60 million contract. Anderson was making less than $800,000. The Jets are paying Le'Veon Bell $53 million, only to be the second worst rushing team in football. Instead of paying running backs, I suggest teams allocate their money to literally any other position, besides maybe kicker, but that's a whole nother story. And Gurley and Bell are far from outliers. The Chiefs have this running back named Spencer Ware, who tore his ACL before the 2017 season and was replaced by Kareem Hunt, who was drafted in the 3rd round. Kareem Hunt promptly became a star and led the league in yards. The next season, Kareem Hunt got himself suspended from the league after getting caught kicking a woman on a hotel security camera. And after he was gone, the Chiefs once again replaced him with a late-round draft pick. After losing Hunt, the Chiefs' rushing attack decreased by only 1 yard per game. And then they won the Super Bowl. It is so easy to find examples of backup running backs coming in for the starters and then matching the starters' output or even exceeding it. It is much harder, frankly, to find examples where that doesn't happen. I mean, 2014. Adrian Peterson misses the whole season. The Vikings' rushing efficiency actually improved. It was 8th in 2013, then 4th when he was gone, and then 8th again when Peterson returned in 2015. And I don't even remember who the Vikings running back was in 2014. And I live in Minnesota, so I should know this. Oh, that's right. It was Matt Asiata. Adrian Peterson to Matt Asiata, and the Vikings' rushing attack got more efficient. It is it is so ridiculous that people still think running backs are valuable. The Vikings had the most dominant running back of the era for a whole decade and were top 5 in rushing DVOA just 3 times. And one of those times was when he missed the whole season. And people always tell me like, "Oh, Theo, you really think the Panthers would be better without Christian McCaffrey, or you think the Giants would be better without Saquon, or they shouldn't have picked those guys? Those guys are great." And it's like, well, they can't get worse. The Panthers and the Giants suck. They have these great running backs, and those two teams are terrible. So what does that tell you about running backs, right? And even with Saquon and even with McCaffrey, who are super talented running backs, like you look at the Giants and their season high in rushing yards this year came in a game that Saquon missed. And Christian McCaffrey's backup averaged 7.6 yards per carry this season. So I'm not convinced that the Panthers and Giants would take some sort of huge hit in their absence. When I say running backs don't matter, I mean all running backs. I don't think Derrick Henry matters. I don't think Saquon Barkley matters. I don't think Christian McCaffrey matters. I don't think Ezekiel Elliott matters. I don't think Dalvin Cook matters. Dalvin Cook was hurt for a couple games this season, and the backup to his backup came in and rushed for over 100 yards. Alexander Mattison had more yards per attempt than Cook did. Ezekiel Elliott's backup, Tony Pollard, is faster than Zeke, averages more yards per carry than Zeke, and breaks more tackles than Zeke. So I almost guarantee you that if Zeke was hurt, Tony Pollard would step in and do just as well, because he honestly would probably do better because he has a better skill set. So if running backs don't matter, what does? Because there are some teams that are better at running the football than others. And I would say that having a great offensive line matters the most. And also having a coach that does creative things with blocking schemes, and also having a quarterback that can take some of the pressure off the running back and keep the defense honest. And also having a quarterback that can audible out of bad looks and make sure that teams are getting the most out of any running play. If you have all those three things, you can put anyone in your backfield and succeed. And if you put a great running back in your backfield without those three things, you're not going to see much success. And that's my overall point. When I think of the best teams running the football this season, I think of the 49ers and I think of the Ravens. Not because those two teams have the best running backs, especially the 49ers, who just throw out whatever fast running back they can find and rotate it. Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon's actually the highest paid one, even though he's the least useful. Who would have thought? At any rate, they don't exactly have any future Hall of Famers on that roster. They just kind of throw out whoever. And it works because their zone running scheme is so well put together and it's so effective at opening up holes. On some of these 49ers runs, I'm convinced I could pick up 10, 20 yards. And then there's the Ravens, who set the record this year for most rushing yards in a season. And they didn't do that with Adrian Peterson or Saquon Barkley or LaDainian Tomlinson or some Hall of Fame running back. They did it with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson. But the running back was Mark Ingram. And he's fine, but you'd expect if running backs were really what mattered in a running game, that the team with the most rushing yards in a season would have some, elite, historically great running back on their team. But that's just not the case. What they do have is a great offensive line and a great mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and a scheme that relies on RPOs and options to get the most out of every running play. And that's how they set the record. And that's what does matter when you're running the football. And that's why I say running backs don't matter. Every NFL running back is athletic enough to hit an open hole. And either they have them or they don't. Even Derrick Henry, who looked like he was beating teams by himself late this season, benefited immensely from having the fourth best run blocking offensive line in the league. And don't forget that until Tennessee made the quarterback switch, Derrick Henry was playing pretty bad. He was being held under 80 yards a game and under 4 yards per rush. It was only once Tennessee switched to Tannehill and they began getting stellar quarterback play along with their superior run blocking, that was when Derrick Henry started to shine. Even he needed perfect circumstances to look the way he did. And that is why I say running back is the least valuable and most replaceable position on the football field.